I woke up to the sound of something breathing heavily, right outside my tent. Not wind, not rain, something alive. I didn't move at first. I just listened. Each exhale was slow and damp, like it steamed the night air. Then I saw the silhouette through the thin nylon. A massive shadow swaying gently side to side, low to the ground. Big, way too big to be human. I sat up slowly, not making a sound. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached for the zipper of the tent, then stopped. Was I really about to unzip this thing with a bear outside? I hesitated, then moved my hand back. Maybe if I stayed still, it would just leave. But the breathing continued, and then I heard a low whimper, not from the big shadow, from something smaller, closer to the ground. I peeked through a tiny slit in the fabric. My headlamp was still off. I saw her, a bear, a mother bear. She stood just a few feet away, not moving but not growling either. Beside her lay a cub. It wasn't moving. My mouth went dry. My brain tried to make sense of it. Why was she here? Why wasn't she attacking? Why bring her cub? To me, for a few long seconds, I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. She looked at the tent, at me, like she knew I was inside. And then she made a sound, barely a growl, more like a sigh. Then silence again. Couldn't take it. I had to see better. I switched on my headlamp, but kept it pointed down. Then, slowly, I unzipped the tent halfway and leaned out. She didn't move. She watched me, not like prey, like something else. Like, she was waiting. The cub lay on its side, eyes shut, its little body heaving irregularly. Blood matted the fur around its nose. I could see the rise and fall of its chest, but barely. I whispered, "What the hell is going on?" The mother didn't flinch. I swear, she almost nodded, like she was telling me, "Do something." I crawled out completely, crouching low. The air smelled of damp earth, pine, and something metallic, blood. My hands shook. I reached into my pack, pulled out my first aid kit. Useless for bears, I figured, but it was all I had. A bottle of water, some gauze, a small packet of glucose gel. I didn't know what I was doing, but I moved toward the cub anyway. Still, the mother didn't move. I was a foot away from her baby, and she just stood there, watching. I soaked a cloth in water and dabbed at the cub's nose, wiping away some of the blood. It shivered. That's when my eyes welled up. What the hell am I doing? I'm not a vet. I'm not trained for this. But that bear brought her dying cub to me. Me. Out of all the people in this forest, she chose me. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I stayed, and she stayed. The night grew colder. My little fire had died down, but none of us moved. A man, a bear, and a cub that might not make it to morning. And somehow we were all waiting together. She didn't move, not an inch. The mother bear stood like a stone statue, massive and quiet, her breath fogging in the cool night air. I crouched just outside the tent, maybe 10 feet from her cub, trying to keep my movements slow, deliberate. I didn't dare make eye contact with her for too long. It felt like looking into something ancient. The cub wheezed softly. Each breath sounded like a fight. I opened my water bottle again and soaked a clean piece of gauze. Then I scooted forward a few inches and gently touched the cloth to the cub's mouth. The little body flinched. Not much, just enough to show it was still in there, fighting. I whispered, "You're okay. You're okay. Hang in there." Out of the corner of my eye, I watched the mother. She didn't growl, didn't shift, just stared still as death, like she was trying to read me, like she was making a choice. My hands trembled. I camped in bear country before, sure. I'd seen a few at a distance, but nothing like this, nothing so raw. I poured a few drops of water near the cub's mouth. A little blood mixed in, but I saw its tongue twitch. That was something. I glanced back at the mother. She blinked, slowly, then sat down. I froze. That was somehow more terrifying than her standing. Like she'd decided to stay. Like she accepted me for now. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay. We're doing this." I reached into my pack again, found a small packet of honey I'd packed for tea. I tore it open with my teeth, then dabbed a little onto the gauze. I held it to the cub's lips. Nothing. Then its tongue flicked out. Barely. I nearly laughed, but it came out like a cough. "That's it. Come on, kid. Come on." The minutes passed slowly. The woods around us creaked and hissed in the wind. A few distant owl calls, but otherwise silence. I didn't know how much longer I could stay like that, crouched, cold, every nerve screaming. But I stayed. Eventually, I sat cross-legged beside the cub, my hands resting on my knees. The mother bear was just a few yards away now, her eyes never leaving me. The cub twitched again. I could see its side rise and fall, slower than before. I felt useless. This wasn't something I was trained for. I wasn't a ranger or a biologist or a vet. I was just a guy who wanted some peace and quiet. Now I was the only thing standing between this cub and the dark. Part of me thought I should back off. Leave them be. Let nature take its course. But something about the way the mother looked at me made that impossible. She wasn't threatening me. She wasn't begging either. She was trusting me, and that trust weighed more than any fear I had. The cold crept in. I wrapped my arms around myself and glanced up at the stars. My little fire was out now, just glowing embers. I whispered, mostly to myself, "If you're still alive by morning, little one, I'll take that as a sign." And then I crawled slowly back into my tent, leaving it half unzipped. I lay down in my sleeping bag, fully clothed, listening to every tiny sound outside. The mother didn't leave. Neither did I. The cold had seeped into my bones by the time the sky began to lighten. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out, listening. The silence outside was so complete, it pressed against the tent walls like fog. When I finally sat up and peeked out, the sight hit me like a punch. She was still there. The mother bear hadn't moved. She was sitting now maybe 10 feet from the tent, her front paws planted firm, her head slightly lowered, watching. And the cub? Still breathing. Barely, but it was something. I slipped out of the tent quietly, not bothering with the zipper this time. The air was crisp, tinged with dew and pine. Birds had started their usual morning chatter, oblivious to the standoff happening just a few feet from them. The cub's little chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven patterns. Its eyes were still shut, dried blood crusted around its nose. I moved to my pack and dug through the supplies. I wasn't much of a herbalist, but I did know a few things. I grabbed a small pot, my camping stove, and a Ziploc bag of dried wild chamomile and yarrow I'd picked up the week before. As the water heated, I looked back at her. Still no sign of aggression, just quiet presence. That steady, unblinking gaze. When the water boiled, I tossed in the herbs and let them steep. The smell filled the clearing, sweet and earthy. I dipped a clean cloth into the liquid, let it cool for a few seconds, then gently dabbed it around the cub's mouth and nose. The bear cub twitched. I cleaned as much of the dried blood as I could. It was a slow process, and every time the cub stirred, I felt a jolt of hope and fear. Behind me, a branch snapped. I froze, looked at the mother. She was alert now, ears perked, muscles tight. Another crack. Something or someone was moving through the forest. Fast. I stood slowly, heart thudding. Was it another bear? A boar? A human? Whatever it was, the mother bear made her decision. She turned and bolted into the trees, crashing through undergrowth with startling speed. Gone. Just like that, she left the cub behind. I knelt beside the little body, looking toward the place she'd disappeared. Why now? Why run? The answer came seconds later. A loud shout echoed through the trees. Hello? Anyone out there? Voices. Human. I stood up, waving instinctively. Over here. 2 men appeared through the trees, wearing orange hiking vests and carrying walkie-talkies. We saw smoke last night. Thought someone might need help, one said. I'm okay, I replied quickly. But there's something else. Their eyes landed on the cub. They stopped cold. Is that a bear cub? The taller one asked. Yeah, the mother was just here. She brought it to me. It's hurt, bad, but she trusted me, I think. They exchanged looks. You're lucky she didn't kill you, one muttered. No kidding, I said. But she didn't. I crouched again beside the cub. It was still breathing, slower now. You guys got a signal? I asked. Barely. Might be able to reach the ranger station if we climb up the ridge. Do it. Tell them we've got a wounded cub. Might need wildlife rescue. They hesitated, but then nodded. As they left, I stayed, alone again with a cub that had been left in my care. The mother bear was gone, but her trust, that stayed. By the time the voices disappeared into the trees, taking their footsteps and radios with them, the forest fell silent again. Just me and the cub. I looked around, half expecting the mother bear to return at any second. But there was nothing. Just wind through the branches and the occasional bird call. The cub lay motionless, still breathing, but each breath sounded wet and rattled deep in its chest. Its fur was matted, dirty, and stuck to its small body in clumps. I took off my spare fleece jacket and laid it on the ground beside the fire pit. Then, as gently as I could, I lifted the cub. Less than 20 pounds, but it felt like lifting something made of glass. I settled it onto the jacket, tucking the sides around its body to keep in what warmth I could. It shivered once, then stilled again. "There you go, buddy," I said softly. "That's better." I stirred the pot of herbs from earlier, reheated it just enough to warm it without scalding. Then I took my titanium spoon, dipped it in, and let a few drops fall onto the cub's lips. A flick of the tongue. "Yeah, you like that? Natural medicine. Better than anything in a bottle." I tried again, letting another spoonful touch its mouth. This time, the cub tried to lick it, just barely, but enough to know it was still fighting. I exhaled. Then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I talked. "So, what's your story, huh? You got into a fight? Fell off a log? Ate something bad?" No response, of course, but the cub's ears twitched. "You're lucky you're cute. I don't know what I'm doing, and you're making me look like a wilderness EMT." I chuckled. Felt weird at first, then oddly good, like I'd forgotten how to be around another living thing, even one that couldn't talk back. The hours passed slowly. I moved around camp, cleaned up some trash, rebuilt the fire, always keeping one eye on the cub. I adjusted the jacket, added a dry towel underneath when the ground soaked through. Every so often I spoke to it. Nothing profound, just whatever came to mind. You know, I came out here to get away from screens, emails, people yelling into their phones in cafes. Didn't expect to play nursemaid to a bear cub. The cub shifted again, weak but steady. The sun started to dip. Long shadows crept between the trees. I felt that creeping awareness. Dusk in the woods brings with it a special kind of tension. And then I felt it, that presence. I didn't hear her at first, just turned and saw the shape between the trees. Low, broad, silent. She was back. The mother bear stood at the edge of the clearing, still, watching. My heart jumped, but I didn't move. I raised one hand slowly, just to show her I saw her. Not a wave, not a warning, just presence. She stepped forward, 2 steps, then stopped. The cub stirred. A faint whine escaped its throat. She let out a low chuff. I stepped aside. The mother moved closer, cautiously. She reached the cub, sniffed its head gently, and then looked at me, just for a moment. And then she lay down, not far, maybe 6 feet from where her cub rested. I backed off to the tent, sat down near the entrance, arms wrapped around my knees. We stayed like that for a long time. 3 living beings, in a clearing, between 2 worlds neither of us fully understood. The fire was dying again. I fed it some twigs, then sat back against my backpack, eyes flicking between the orange coals and the dark outline of the mother bear. She hadn't moved much. Her cub lay curled on my fleece, barely stirring. Every few minutes, she'd let out a deep rhythmic breath, like a sigh or a low rumble in her chest. I didn't know if she was relaxing or calculating. Darkness settled in like a heavy blanket. No moon, just stars and the faint hiss of wind through pine needles. I could feel the wild pressing in from all sides, that ancient silence, that unknowable presence. Then came the snap, a sharp, dry twig breaking in the woods. Not far. I sat up, blood running cold. Another sound, this time lower, more deliberate. Something moving. The bear raised her head, not fast, but alert, her ears tilted forward. I grabbed the hatchet I kept by my sleeping bag. My hands were sweating. My breath came quick. The noise came again, closer, heavier. No way it was a deer. The cub whimpered. I didn't move, barely breathed. And then I saw it. A shape, leaner than the bear, moving low and slow between the trees. Eyes reflecting firelight. A wolf, alone. It crept into the edge of the clearing, its head low, body taut. It saw me, saw the bear, saw the cub. Predator instincts. The mother bear didn't hesitate. With a sound like rolling thunder, she lunged to her feet and charged. The wolf yelped, loud and sharp, and bolted into the trees. Branches cracked, leaves scattered. Silence followed. I hadn't moved, still clutching the hatchet, knees stiff. The bear stopped at the edge of the clearing, stood still for a moment. Then, slowly, she turned and came back. I was frozen. She passed near the fire, near me. I swear I felt the warmth from her body as she walked by. She didn't even look at me. Instead, she went straight to the cub, lowered her head, nudged it gently with her nose, sniffed along its side. A few more deep breaths. The cub made a soft sound, barely a squeak. The bear sat down again, this time closer to the fire. I didn't move, just watched. And then I felt it. Not fear, not tension, something else. Acceptance. The line between her and me, between wild and human, blurred a little that night. Not erased, but softened. I let the hatchet drop beside me and leaned back. We sat like that for hours, not speaking, not moving, just sharing the same space. 3 lives, woven together by something none of us understood.
If you love stories about wildlife rescue, click the subscribe button below. Here's how the button looks on different devices. Every subscription helps spread these stories and raise awareness. The more people know, the more animals get the help they need. And remember, subscribing is completely free. Click subscribe now and join us in protecting wildlife.
I woke up just before sunrise, still fully dressed, leaning awkwardly against my backpack. My neck ached, my legs were stiff, but something pulled me out of the fog of sleep. A sound, a tiny grunt. I blinked and looked over toward the fleece jacket where the cub still lay. The fire was out, just blackened coals and ash now. But the light creeping over the ridge gave me enough to see. The cub's head was up. Not much, just a few inches off the ground, but it was up. I sat forward, heart jumping. It blinked, slowly, then shifted one paw a few inches and let out a hoarse, breathy squeak. "Hey! Hey there!" I whispered. "You're back." The mother bear was already awake. She was sitting just behind the cub, alert but calm. When her baby moved again, she leaned in and nuzzled its side. Then, slowly, she licked the cub's head, soft, deliberate strokes. I didn't dare get closer, but I smiled wide and real. Whatever we'd done, water, herbs, warmth, or just presence, it had made a difference. They were going to make it. I pulled out my phone. Battery was low, maybe 20%, but it still worked. I opened the voice recorder and hit record. April 14th, just after dawn. The cub lifted its head today. First time since it got here. Breathing still rough, but it's awake. Mother bear still here. Calm. Trusting. I don't think I'm dreaming anymore. I saved the file, snapped a quick photo, not close, just enough to capture the moment. I didn't know if anyone would ever see it, but I needed to mark it. To remind myself this wasn't a hallucination or a story I'd someday tell just to sound brave. It was happening. The cub tried to stand. Its legs wobbled. It didn't make it far, just a weak shuffle. But the attempt alone felt like a miracle. The mother bear made a low humming sound, almost like encouragement. She glanced at me. Not long, just a second. And in that moment, I didn't see an animal. I saw a mother. I felt something shift in me, something simple and solid. I wasn't just camping anymore. I wasn't just surviving a bizarre encounter. I was involved, needed, part of whatever this was. I sat down cross-legged a few feet away, not wanting to intrude but not willing to retreat either. "You're stronger than you look," I said to the cub. "And your mom's a damn force of nature." The cub responded with another weak squeak and settled back onto the jacket. The mother lay beside it now, her body curved protectively around her child. We stayed like that for a long time, no threats, no walls, just raw life unfolding. I wasn't afraid anymore. I didn't feel like a tourist. I felt like I belonged. Clouds began to gather just after noon. Slow at first, then fast. Thick and low, crawling in over the ridgeline like a warning. The temperature dropped. The wind picked up. I stood at the edge of the clearing, looking up at the sky. Something in my chest tightened. Mountain storms didn't play around. And this one looked serious. I checked my phone, no signal. Of course. Battery at 13%. No updates from the guys who'd promised to contact the ranger station. For all I knew, they never made it. I turned back toward the tent. The cub was asleep again, curled tight into the fleece. His breath was shallow. The mother bear sat beside it, fur rippling in the wind. I had to make a decision. If I left now, I might be able to beat the storm down the slope, make it to the trailhead before nightfall. I could get help, maybe even return with rangers or meds. But that meant leaving them. I looked at the cub again. It was too weak to move. And if anything happened in the next few hours, another predator or worse, the mother might not be able to handle it alone. Not with the cub like this. My stomach twisted. I opened my pack and took stock. Half a protein bar. some trail mix, one water bottle, and at the very bottom 2 tablets of children's ibuprofen. I packed them weeks ago in case of a headache. I stared at them. They weren't made for bears. I didn't know if it would help or hurt, but doing nothing felt worse. I crushed one into powder, mixed it into a bit of honey, and added a few drops of water. Then I knelt beside the cub. Its eyes fluttered open, barely. "Okay, kid," I whispered. "This is all I've got. Please don't let it hurt you." I held the mixture to its lips. A weak tongue flicked. Then again. The mother bear watched, unmoving. She didn't growl, didn't flinch. I sat back, exhaling hard. The wind howled louder now, shaking the treetops. The first drops of rain splattered across my jacket. I retreated to the tent and zipped it halfway shut. Kept an eye on the cub through the gap. Thunder rolled in the distance. All night the storm raged. Rain pounded the nylon. Wind slapped branches against the ground. I didn't sleep. I checked on the cub every hour, crawling out to make sure it was still breathing. But around 3 a.m., I felt panic rise. His body was hot. Too hot. Fever. I crushed the second tablet. Repeated the process. Honey. Water. A whispered prayer I didn't know I still had in me. Then I sat outside the tent, soaked, cold, and listening to the storm. Somewhere near dawn, I dozed off. I woke to silence. The rain had stopped. The sun was just a faint glow behind the fog. I sat up and froze. The mother bear was right in front of me, standing close, too close. I didn't move. She looked down at me. Then, slowly, deliberately, she extended one paw and touched my shoulder. Just once. Gentle. Then she turned and walked back to her cub. I stared after her, stunned. I don't know what it meant, but it felt like something. Maybe even, thank you. A week passed. 7 full days of city noise, paved sidewalks, and lukewarm coffee from gas stations. I went back to my apartment, to my job, to all the normal things people are supposed to do after a camping trip. But I wasn't really there. I kept checking the weather up in the range, watching the trail cams online, thinking about them every single night. On the 8th morning, I packed my bag again. Didn't tell anyone. Just drove up the same winding roads, parked at the same turnout, and hiked in with quiet steps. The forest welcomed me differently this time. Not as a stranger. Not quite as one of its own, but something in between. The trail to the old camp was rougher now. Storm debris everywhere. Fallen limbs. Pooled water. I stepped around each sign like I was walking through a memory. When I reached the clearing, my chest tightened. The tent was gone. Not just collapsed, ripped apart. Torn fabric dangled from a tree branch. My little cookpot was bent in half. Something or someone had definitely come through after the storm. But there were signs of life too. Right where the fire pit had been, fresh paw prints dotted the soft ground. Small ones, uneven, and bigger ones beside them. They'd been here. And then I heard it. A low chuff, distant but familiar. I climbed a short rise behind the clearing and looked out across the next valley. There they were. The mother bear stood tall near a patch of wild blueberries. Beside her, stumbling awkwardly but upright, was the cub. His fur looked fuller, stronger. It bounced a little as it tried to climb over a log. She waited, patient, watching. I didn't move, didn't wave, didn't call out. I just stood there, letting the moment sink in. There was no reunion needed, no dramatic gesture, just the quiet truth. They'd made it, and I had too. I turned and made my way back down the trail, taking my time. Every step felt lighter, like I was walking with something added instead of something lost. I didn't know if I'd ever see them again, but I knew I'd never forget them. Somewhere between fear and trust, between instinct and choice, we'd met each other, and left footprints no rain could wash away.